Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. G'day everybody and welcome to Voice of Gord. Today's guest is Mr. Mike Lombard from the Lombard Trucking Podcast. Mike is a trucker fitness evangelist who you may have seen on TikTok or Instagram or perhaps on Twitter. His energy is infectious and he's just such a great guy whose mission seems to be making sure we're all the best and physically fit version of ourselves. And he just has this awesome message, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this show. We go over the history of Mike's family's trucking company way back when in the northeast corner of the United States, his service in the military, how he got back into trucking and carries forward the family name, and why he feels it's so important for truckers to get into shape. And he really wants to help people with that, and I really appreciate his mission, and his energy is just amazing, and you guys will see. Like you're going to be glued to this one, and I think you're going to be big fans of Mike. Coming up later on Voice of Gord next week, my friend Trent Lalonde is going to be joining me to discuss trying to get trucking recognized as a trade. Hopefully the week after that, I'll be recording finally with Dr. Karen Levy of Cornell University, and author of Data Driven, Truckers, Technology, and the New Workplace Surveillance. We've had a few scheduling interruptions, but Karen, I think, is finally going to come through for us, and I'm really looking forward to that discussion. Got many other great guests lined up. It looks like spring is going to be very good to the Voice of Gord program. I'm really hoping that you guys enjoy the coming episodes. On that note, as far as enjoyment goes, I hope y'all can help me out by sharing this show with other people. As you know, I don't take ads, I don't take sponsors, I don't ask anybody for money, and the only way that this show can get to my target audience of my fellow truckers is by word of mouth. So if you guys can help me out and share it with another truck driver you know in your life, and hopefully you enjoy it yourselves as you're going down the road. As always, this show is for you guys. All right, let's get to Mike. Hey, g'day everybody. Welcome to another episode of Voice of Gord. I'm Gord. This is my voice. The other voice you're going to hear today is manic, full of energy, freshly sweaty from pirating a forklift at a trucking facility in Laredo, Texas, because some dickwads didn't load his trailer properly. He's hot and sweaty and looking great. You might know him from Instagram or TikTok as Mr. Lombard Trucking. Mike Lombard, welcome to the show, sir.
Gord, I'm glad to be here. Glad you're having me, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, well, I'm just returning the favor. You had me on as a guest on your show a couple months back. I think you found me in some long, crazy Twitter thread discussing things of very low import. But here we are. And so I just met you at Matt's in real life, Mid-America Trucking Show. And your energy is amazing. I just watched a few of your TikTok videos. I have to admit, I'm not a video guy. I don't watch YouTube. I don't have TikTok on my phone. I don't have an account. But in the interest of doing research for this discussion, I thought I better go check out these infamous, inspirational, high energy Lombard trucking TikTok vids. And I was blown away, dude. I saw one where you're pulled over in Missouri somewhere and you're running with a plate carrier and you're doing a selfie and just yelling at people to get ripped and be exercised and be in shape so that we can fight back the robot trucks. And I'm like, who's the guy from Terminator? John, like the leader
John
of the
John
Resistance,
Connor.
John Connor. I'm like, this is John Connor of trucking right here. Amazing. And then I see you like used me in one of your TikTok videos and didn't even tell me.
Which one?
The photo of me in that triple road train in Australia with my like short shorts.
Oh yeah, I should have asked you for consent on
No,
that, and
that's
I
all
feel
right.
bad. But
No,
in
man. Short supremacy. I'm all about like maximum vitamin D3 production, getting some tan, getting some sun, and yeah, I'm with you on bringing back the 1970s NBA basketball short and making it a respectable thing out on the road. I don't understand when it's hot outside. Like, who wants to constrict themselves?
Yeah, people who, yeah, the wrong types of people. And it's funny on that video. So you're not on TikTok, which do yourself a favor and yeah, don't even bother trying to get on there. But those are videos that are considered like in the trucker talk algorithm. They're especially inflammatory. Like when guys talk about when they talk about shoe wear. Yeah, when you mention the shoe wear, because like you'll get old school guys who are like who will talk shit about the drivers who's like, oh, they got their fucking Nike slides on and stuff. So I knew that that video would gain traction in the algorithm because it's inflammatory.
Hey man, I'll take all the clout that wants to chase me for not dressing accordingly. That's fine. So yeah, I have to say, very well produced. I don't know anything about video production, but like for little TikTok videos, they look pretty slick. But that's not why we're here. Your life story is amazing. Your family ran a now defunct trucking company in the Northeast, and you're a military veteran. You've done some tours overseas. You're a manic fitness freak, doing all these workout videos and trying to get people in better shape. You realize that truckers as a demographic typically aren't the most in shape people, and you have this mission to try and help them, which I have mad respect for. And your energy at Matt's was incredible. Like, you were bouncing off the walls without actually bouncing off the walls. And I want to introduce my audience to yourself, and I want you to tell me the whole story. Lombard Trucking, your service to the military, how you got into trucking after your family's company went defunct. Like, download the whole story, man. Go.
Yeah. So I from the top. So it all started. It was my grandfather's grandfather and his brother Nick and John Lombard. They came over. Nicky Lombard was born in Caserta, Italy, small town outside of Naples. His brother ended up being born in the U.S. But when they had gotten here, they got here, turn of the century, 20th century, and they started working at a young age in Waterbury, Connecticut, and they had I don't have the story right in front of me, but I heard that they had gotten fired from jobs from being too young and stuff from working in factories, and then eventually, just approaching into the 1920s, they had gotten themselves a horse and carriage, and as people were moving in droves, and new immigrants were coming in droves up from the train station into Waterbury. They used that horse and carriage to deliver people's luggage from the train station to wherever they were living. And then, they also got into, they would deliver big blocks of ice up into the Litchfield Hills in the northwest corner of Connecticut, up to like restaurants and stuff for, refrigerating meat. And then in 1923 is when they officially incorporated as Lombard Brothers, or what was known as Lombard Trucking. And from 1923, they became, the largest motor carrier in the Northeast. They had 11 terminals from Baltimore to Maine. They,
How
it's
many
from,
trucks? How many trucks do you figure they had?
the total number of equipment I actually have written down, but they had several hundred trailers and like I want to say maybe 250 or 300 tractors. Like I said, I have this data written down. I can actually get it to you in the show notes.
That's pretty sizable, especially for back then.
Yeah, it was a respectable size. This was they were a Teamster affiliate. A union gig. They were guys who drove for Lombard. Would drive there for 30 years. They had a pension. They were It was a respectable job. They were home, they were home daily. My grandfather, his father drove for Lombard, and then my grandfather himself, he drove 30 years for Lombard. And then deregulation had happened in 1980, and they kind of limped on, and they had some financial issues going on, that stemmed from all that, and they limped on until 1984. But what's funny, and I talked about this with Rachel Premack on my show. I was talking to my grandmother about this back over Christmas, and I was asking her, I was like, "Do you remember, when this legislation happened, right in 1980?" And my grandmother said, "Oh, I'll never forget, when deregulation happened, because your grandfather, he came home." And he was livid mad. He came in the door and he just started screaming. He said, "They're gonna let any motherfucker into this shit. They're like they're letting everybody in. They're ruining the entire. This is gonna ruin the country." He flipped out. He's a little dramatic. He had high energy, like me.
Hey,
And
what's the likelihood your grandfather or any of your other ancestors met Jimmy Hoffa?
see that I don't know. The likelihood is probably high. I never, I'd have to say at least some of the drivers must have known him,
Uh,
especially in like the 60s.
yeah.
I'm
So
I'm
on the deregulation thing, I just had an interesting interaction online here an hour or two ago. Just as I was wrapping up at the mill, I was getting my last load off. These gentlemen on Twitter were having a argument about the term labor shortage, and there's this one guy saying it's a propaganda term because people just don't want to pay. It doesn't mean that there's a shortage of labor. There's a shortage of people willing to pay for it. Um, anyway, I somehow got tagged in it, and I had to disassemble the driver shortage narrative again for a bunch of large account econ nerds, and something struck me. I started thinking about um, driver shortages in other countries, and because there are, the UK is trying to bring truck drivers from other parts of Europe. Australia are screaming for truck drivers. My buddy Graham was telling me like places like Bulgaria and South Africa claim to have truck driver shortages. And I was watching this thread, and then it like struck me, like there's this term that a lot of like leftist type people have been throwing around for a while, and it's called race to the bottom. I'm not quite sure what the origination story is on that, but basically the idea is like, you ship jobs overseas, you import poor people who are willing to work cheaper. There's this race to the bottom for wages, and I think we've hit it. I think truck drivers achieved bottom. So the bottom, this race to the bottom is over, and the first people to get there are truckers, because we now have every single country on earth, companies within it are now trying to poach drivers from other countries. So it's like, okay, cool. We finally got to that point now where like even places considered like borderlining on being second or third world, like Bulgaria or South Africa, are now like, hey, we don't have enough truck drivers and we have to get them from somewhere else. And so that sort of means that like everybody is literally not paying us enough, right? Like that indicates that there's people who do not want to do this job anymore. And so local trucking companies are like, all right, well, let's go to this other country and poach people from there. But now you can't do it because the other countries are also out of truck drivers. And so anyway, I'm going to write something on Substack about this tomorrow. I had that thing, and when you told me about your family company's demise post deregulation, that popped in my head. So your family's company limps along for a while, then they finally closed. You said in 1984.
Yeah, so they were bought out by a company called North Penn Transfer, and and it still was a Teamster affiliate because they were a union, because North Penn Transfer didn't make it 10 years. They actually they ended up closing their doors in 1992 because of contract negotiations with the union. So clearly, it's just they weren't able to survive in that market. And actually, so the the company itself altogether folded. And when we were at Matt's, actually, it's funny, there's a historical society there, and I think I had shown you the pictures. There was a guy who has a pamphlet of books. He has a pamphlet of patches of old trucking companies. And for the first time, and I've been trying to find Lombard's DOT number, because I was like, well, if they had a DOT number, either somebody still has it, because those DOT numbers don't just disappear. Like they're staying in the system. You could buy them, and because they used to have an ICC number, and obviously those went away because of deregulation and because of how it used to be, I guess, with the bingo cards or however it looked when things were different before they had deregulated freight. And this guy had some old Lombard patches, and I finally found the DOT number, and he told me. I was like, so who's using this number? And he's like, well, it's expired. Nobody's using it. So I'm actually going to try to see who I can finesse at the FMCSA about trying to buy that myself.
Oh, wow.
If I could one day, that would be cool.
Heritage. So what did your family end up doing? So they get bought out by these guys. So what is your dad, your uncles, anybody that might have been tied up with Lombard Trucking? What did they end up moving into, to stay working?
Yeah. So what's crazy is, and you wouldn't think this off the rip, because people think truckers can't do anything else besides drive. But what's interesting is that most of my family, because it was my grandfather and a lot of his cousins, and I'm actually connected with one of them, John Lombard, on LinkedIn. One of them ended up he owns a Ford dealership, so they got into cars, but they also stayed into real estate. So a lot of what the old terminals were like. So if you're in Waterbury, there's a car dealership in Waterbury called Blasius Chevrolet. There's still a plaza called Lombard Plaza, and it's a strip mall. That whole area used to be a terminal. So they ended up staying with real estate, and they owned property in downtown Waterbury. Like all the properties that they owned via the trucking company, they ended up repurposing either into some strip malls, or other things. I know that so my grandfather who drove that plaza, Lombard Plaza, had a bunch of stores in it, and he took ownership of that plaza, and he managed. There used to be a video rental store, and I remember this as a very little kid. He would run, because my mom would work there, and he ran like a movie rental store within that strip plaza. And they eventually,
I'm old enough to remember that kind of stuff. I remember when I was a kid, we lived in this little tiny town called Dwight, which is about 2.5 hours north of Toronto, and we lived there for about 3 years. Black and white TV, rabbit ears. We basically got 2 channels, 3 if the atmospheric conditions were right. And every once in a while, my old man and my mom would rent a VCR just for the weekend. So they'd roll. There was some store, they would go and they would rent a VCR, in half a dozen movies, and we would have a movie weekend, and all black and white. So this is 1986, 87 on a black and white TV in the woods.
Really? So service was like that in Canada? It was based on the weather. You might have gotten more channels.
So do you remember rabbit ears, or are you too young? Everything was cable.
Yeah, no, my mom's mother I'm pretty sure even when they sold the house a few years ago, there was a TV we used to watch in her basement that had 2 knobs and and the antennas on it.
Yes, that's the whole old idea of airwaves and TV being broadcast. Well, that's how radio antennas would catch it and put the signal in your TV. So if you lived like I say, we lived in the woods north of Toronto, and it would depended on the atmosphere. But a little bit of my family history for you. Okay, so they move into real estate. They're renting movies. Everyone's still hanging out in Connecticut. When does Mike Lombard come on the scene? What year were you born?
So I was born in 1990. I'm 33.
90. Okay, just a young fella yet. All right. And then you grow up in Connecticut. You're a Hartford Whalers supremacist. Peace be upon them. Where did they move?
Raleigh, North Carolina, unfortunately.
No. No hockey teams south of the Mason-Dixon line. Sorry, that's stupid. So you're in Connecticut, and at some point somewhere along the way, you decide to join the United States military. What branch of the service did you sign up for? Where'd you end up? How did that whole experience influence your life? Fill us in on that part.
It's crazy because when you look in hindsight, I joined the Marine Corps for the same kind of reasons or passions, or I guess just how I was raised that I got into trucking. So like I went to high school in Waterbury, Holy Cross, which is a Catholic high school, and then I'll never forget. At the beginning of my senior year, I wrote my first 10-page paper for a poli sci class, and I got like a B plus on it or something. It's not like I got a bad grade, but I remember like finishing that paper, and I was like, wait, I'm gonna have to keep doing this. Like I was like, this is my future. I got to do this for another 4 years. It's like keep writing like longer papers and doing all this. Like I was like, this is fucking bull. I was like, this is bullshit. This is boring. And for what? I was like thinking, I was like, what is this for? And I remember, and I had a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety because I knew in my heart I didn't want to go to college. I was like, I don't want to do it. Like, what am I going to do? I have no idea what I want to do or what I want to be. I mean, my father, he owns a centerless grinding shop. So he owns a small machine shop in Connecticut. So he does, and my dad never went to college either. He didn't finish high school. So it's like, I see what he did, and he's successful, owns a small business, hires employees. And, but every time I would bring that up, he would always tell, oh no, you and your brother could do better. I don't want you in that line of work. Cause he's worked with a few dope heads before, which I guess happens, but I just knew senior year, I said, I'm not going to college. There's no way. And, I'll never forget the day I was like sitting in a Wendy's, eating a Baconator, and one of my friends who graduated a year before, he's on recruiting duty. He shows up with two Marine recruiters, and they're wearing their dress blues, and he comes over and he talks to me. And the whole time we're talking, because we're catching up, he doesn't even ask me about he just asked me how I'm doing. Great sales guy on this, because all he did was just ask how I was doing, just asked how school was, asked about colleges, and then right at the end he hands me the card. He's like, well, whatever you're thinking about, feel free, give a recruiter a call. And called the next day. It was a fucking no-brainer. When people ask why I joined, it had nothing to do with 9/11. Do I love America, and do I consider myself a patriot? I'd say so. I was never it's not like I was some sort of punk kid or anything like that. I joined because I was like, holy shit, I can wear this dope uniform and not go to college, and it counts as a job. I'm in. Sign me up. So and I picked my job. I knew I didn't want to do something that was office work. So I picked that I was going to do field artillery. And so I joined. I go to boot camp in 2008. I graduate.
My old man was in the artillery. My dad was in the reserves for a hot minute when he was a kid. I think he got in the reserves at the minimum age when he was 17. And he was on some kind of ancient old howitzer or something. He was the seventh man on a howitzer. Yeah, I would have to talk to him about that again. But
You'd have to ask him. I'd imagine he was working with 105s if he was in back in the 70s or so, if I had to give the time period. But yeah, moving forward, I had chosen to do field artillery. And then once I got to my MOS school is really when I found out that I was my actual job. So I wasn't a cannoneer. My job was actually called fire direction control, or fire direction controlman, or FDC for short. And essentially what that job is you're 50 feet behind where the gun line or the cannon crew would be. And you have communication devices, radios, maps, and the FDC communicates with the infantry or forward observers who call for fire, who need artillery. So they'll call the FDC, me, for a fire mission. And then inside the FDC, using computers, and you'll use a software program called AFATIDS, which is Advanced Field Artillery Tactical Data System. It's kind of nerdy stuff. You can use a computer and you can punch in the data, and it's very quick. You'll actually like this because the Marine Corps kept it old school. It kind of it reminds me of running paper logs, I guess you could say. But so you can use a computer to calculate the firing data, and basically the firing data would be what type of round you're going to use, the propellant, which is the powder, and then the quadrant and deflection, basically the direction the cannon tube goes in. You then relay that data to the gun line, and then a cannon crew of people will load and shoot. Now, besides the computer, you can also do what's called manual gunnery, and essentially you have a grid you would do this in like geometry and stuff, like using grid squares. So you would have a grid and you would use this tool called a range deflection protractor, which is like a ruler with another rounded edge on it. And you would use these booklets called TFTs, which are firing tables. And so with the grid, with just the range of how far the target is from the cannon battery, and the grid, you would plot the grid on a map, use that range deflection, and you'd pull this data manually, and you would do a few equations in your head, and you'd use these slide rules. This is like, looks like 1800s type shit. You'd use these like square rectangular, we're not on video, but you use these rectangular things with these slides that go across, and you would find the data that way. And something, and I don't mean to gloat, but I did get an award in the Marines called a meritorious mast for my how well I did manual gunnery in a training exercise in 29 Palms, California. And because eventually you can get yourself to the speed and the rhythm of doing manual gunnery where you could be clapping off data within safety checks of the computer. And it was a pretty cool job. It's kind of nerdy, but it is cool. You do call fire missions down to the gun line. I did go on one combat deployment. I was in northern Helmand province of November 2010 to May of 2011. And what I'm honored to do, why I'm honored by doing that deployment, is I was able to
Helmand province is in Afghanistan, correct?
Yes, yeah, northern Helmand in Afghanistan. And what I'm especially proud of is that I got to do my job overseas. Some people who work in combat arms, whether it be tanks or combat engineers or whatever they may be, if they're not in the general infantry, sometimes you don't get to always do your job overseas, especially as the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan went on for longer than they ever should have. But I got to, provide indirect fire for infantry battalions who were engaging with the Taliban when the war, in my opinion, still had a purpose, because bin Laden was killed right at the end of my deployment. So there was still, in my eyes, there was still a purpose of being there. So we shot a lot of artillery for infantry units, shot a lot of smoke screens for medevacs. So, I mean, part of what we did also saved lives besides take lives.
So you would use artillery to land smoke explosives at a landing zone, like before the helicopters showed up, kind of thing?
Well, the smoke would actually screen the enemy's vision. So you'd fire smoke rounds like along this line. So that way the enemy can't see the helicopters coming in, and they can't see the movement of troops. So you're just screening basically the whole town of smoke or white phosphorus.
Right,
So that way they
So
can't.
you're landing those smoke screen rounds beyond where the troops are, like in
Yeah.
between them and the enemy. Oh, interesting. I've never
Mhm.
even I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, you could do smoke, and then we would also fire illumination rounds at night for, in case there was any troops at night. You would shoot these. You could shoot an illumination round, and it will have a fuse set on a timer or a variable time, and essentially about 100 meters above the deck, above the ground, the canister will explode, and it lets out this like illuminating parachute that could illuminate up to like 1,000 meters, a full grid square. And so yeah, you have illumination rounds. Yeah, there's a couple different uses of artillery besides dropping neighborhoods. You can use it for a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Right. So you're in Afghanistan, you're in the military. Is this when you're um I'm gonna play off of a stereotype here of being in the army or the Marines or whatever and being a young guy and being in shape. Like, is this when you started your commitment to fitness, or did that come later?
Oh, and it actually came much later. Well, I was committed to fitness when I was in, for sure. There was never any doubt about like staying in shape when I was in, but the fitness came later because it's kind of a roller coaster. Because after the Marines, I went to college and I played lacrosse, but after college, I ended up gaining a bunch of weight. So the fitness thing kind of came a little bit later, within the past. I want to say probably really restarted and reengaged in 2018, and really started to ramp up when I knew I was going to be going over the road, in 2020. But I was always into fitness, but it's just later, like some people in their mid 20s, your metabolism starts to catch up, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I've struggled with like seasonal weight gain most of my adult life, probably in my mid to late 20s, especially when I was going out west and running the ice. because when you go up north, basically you're just sat in that seat for 2 months straight. You have a hours exemption for your logbook. You're just back and forth to the mine, and I would gain 25 pounds in 2 months
Yeah,
because
dude,
they feed
that's
they
rough.
feed you all the way along. You get fed in Yellowknife, you get fed at the mine, you can get fed at Lockhart. You're just food, and you're just sitting there driving, and there's just no time for exercise whatsoever. You're just in that seat for like 2 months solid,
Yeah,
and
that's a
I would,
different lifestyle.
yeah, and I would come. We would hit spring break, spring thaw, and then for a couple of years, I went in the holiday in Hydrosamonia in Saskatchewan. And while I was in Saskatchewan, like when you're pumping the anhydrous off, you're like slinging hoses. You're putting the jack shaft in between the tractor and the pump on the lead trailer. You're doing a lot more motion. And then as the weather got warmer, I would eat less. And usually, by June, I would have that 25 pounds gone again. I'd be back to normal. But as I'm getting older, that seasonal weight gain, it does not come off nearly as easy. And it takes a lot more like commitment to eating less calories, working out more, cutting back on beer. Like if I don't stop drinking beer, like any weight control measures just go out the window because beer just like it's just like an adhesive, it just makes everything stick to me.
Yeah, beer's it's empty calories, and yeah, as soon as you drink alcohol, your body stops doing whatever it was doing, and it moves to remove alcohol. So that's why alcohol doesn't will
So
never
how
help
much
you.
how much how much of your own study have you done, like as far as the nutrition side of all this stuff goes? I have a couple of friends who are, like professional nutritionists and dietitians,
Yeah,
and sometimes when I hear you speak, it's like you have some knowledge that would be like in their wheelhouse, like at their level.
Oh man, well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't have any like crazy. I didn't go to school for it. When I went to college, I had gotten a business degree, so it's not like I had went to school. But I like I've mentioned, I was going to mention it later, but I can get into it. I work, as an advisor on an app, which is a health and fitness app and macro tracking app called First Form. And through that app, to work on it, I had to essentially, I had to watch a bunch of training videos, and I have like a mentor myself who would basically answer like a lot of questions regarding stuff about like, because by macros I'm talking macronutrients, which is your calories, protein, carbs, and fats. And so I had to learn about a lot of these things. So I've watched like several hours of educational videos from nutritionists, certified personal trainers about counting your macros, what certain macro and micronutrients do, why you need X amount of grams per protein per pound of body weight, why you need this much water. So that's like, so yeah, I've never gotten any like, I want to get my personal training certification, which in theory I think I probably could very easily if I had time where I was home to get my CPR and and those basic certifications. So I'm definitely working towards it. I mean, I'm always studying about that stuff often. So I'm just always reading about it from nutritionists. Just learning that information best I can. So that way I
Yeah,
could
no,
pass it
it's
on to drivers.
you're a nutrition and fitness autodidact. You're self-taught and you're committed to it and interested in it enough that you can pick all this stuff up on your own. Yeah, maybe you don't have a credential, maybe you didn't sit studying it intensely for 2 years, but it seems to me like you've been focusing on it a lot, and that passion comes through.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll never but I don't want to cut you off, but I just want to let anybody. I'll never recommend anybody, to not first go to their doctor about doing anything like I'll never tell anybody to do anything out of the ordinary or something crazy. I just with my current fitness resume, I definitely feel confident with what I know and given what I've done endurance wise, running wise, to be able to offer advice to at least drivers. It's not like I'm giving advice to professional athletes. I'm not trying to monetize anything of what I'm doing. I do what
No,
I do
no,
for
it all
free.
comes
Yeah.
from the heart, and like you have a legitimate. And this comes across in your show, right? Like you're how many episodes of Lombard Trucking are you into now?
Oh, we got 59, 60's coming up.
Wow. So when this one comes out between you and I think that's number 18 for my show. So like you got way of a head start on me in the podcast world, and good for you. But like every show of yours I've listened to, that like your commitment to fitness and wanting to make truck drivers like how be in better shape and think more about this stuff, like it just comes through so hard. And it's a lot of credit to you, because as we mentioned before, a demographic that's not known very well for being in shape, like in toto, like the mean weight and fitness of the average truck driver is probably not that great. um but like, so give my audience your spiel, why you feel so compelled to help guys with their fitness and their nutrition. What are the dangers? What are the statistics? Like, give us your spiel.
So one of the biggest things is the data kind of speaks for itself on, the average age people retire in the United States is 64. The average life expectancy of a truck driver in the United States is 61. So in the long and short, you're not going to make it. My grandfather is kind of one of those examples in a way, because he suffered from heart problems later in life. He unfortunately he passed away in 2013, and it wasn't the most pleasant way to go either. How he had went out, and he had suffered a heart attack at a younger age as well. I want to say he might have had a heart attack either right around the time I was born, so he was still a younger gentleman at that time. My father has kept himself healthy, quit smoking. He's in his 60s now, and he hasn't had any heart issues. But so it's like, so I've seen it happen in my family. But like I said, the data speaks. If the average life expectancy of a truck driver is 61, guys aren't making it. And there's people who argue, well, I'd rather die with my boots on or whatever, and that's all fine and heroic, and I can appreciate people who say that. It's very brave to have that sort of gumption. But at the end of the day, you're not telling me that. You're looking your family in the face saying, I don't care. I'm going to die doing this. It's okay. And nobody wants to hear that. They don't want your money. That they definitely want you here. It's their time. And one of the biggest, so just besides the fact, just by giving yourself more life, that's the that's the main thing, is at the end of the day is living this. It's not about perfection. I never preach perfection. I'm not all about, oh, you got to give up carbs, you got to do this. It's not. It's just about, I'm all about building yourself into healthy, sustainable habits, so that way you can enjoy life. I'm not saying give up drinking forever, give up this, or never eat pizza. I just had, I'm going to have Terry Blacks this weekend, in Austin. Like, I'm not saying that type of stuff. It's not about that.
What's
There's
Terry
ways to build.
Blacks? What's that?
Oh,
What's that?
really great barbecue spot. Sorry. Yeah, I should have
Okay.
mentioned that. Great brisket. So I'm never talking about giving up anything. It's just all about building healthy, sustainable habits, but also doing the hard things to keep yourself in good shape. So it's not just all about buying yourself as much life as you possibly can. There's a huge mental health aspect to this that's really goes unnoticed. When people start taking care of their physical health, when you make these decisions, and I was talking about this on my last show with our friend, the Rust Belt kid. Recently, there was a Washington Post poll where all these stats where how much people care about things like patriotism, religion, the health, or how things are going in the country, their communities. Their regard for that has plummeted. Like, people don't care about their value for it's gone down. The only thing that's gone up is the value of money. And the thing is, when you stop taking care of things like your country, your community, your faith, your family, when you stop valuing those things, the money isn't going to come with it. And we're starting to see that. Mental or physical health is the same thing. When you start to see the scale drop, notice a physical change in your body, feel your energy, when you have energy, like that's that you complement my energy and a lot of my passion. I kind of have always had it. I've definitely always been even when I was like a bigger guy. So I was born with it, but the energy, like, that's the thing. Guys start getting their energy back. There's drivers that I'm coaching right now. A friend of mine, he just got out of driving a truck. He got another job. He ended up getting another job, something he couldn't pass up. But he ended up losing, over 20 pounds over the road, and he couldn't stop telling me about how his energy levels are different. It's motivated him to do other things around his house. So it's just there's this trickle down effect to when you start getting yourself in great shape that just happens, that starts to affect the other things. Your relationships start to improve. Your job performance is going to start to improve. there's so many other things around you that you're not even going to realize what the things you want are going to change. You're not going to always want, the easiest, solution, or what's going to get you out of something quicker. Everything just starts to trickle down from it. And that's kind of the best way I can turn it up. And it's not all about, and you don't have to run marathons like I do. You don't have to do anything extreme. The only thing I'm trying to let people know is that you can. Like, there's things like you can do in this line of work. You can still do great things. Like, you can still be elite. Like, we don't have, like, from the truck driver perspective, we don't have to look up towards anybody. People can still be looking up to us. And in regards of what you talk about on your show a lot, what I talk about on our show a lot, truck parking, driver pay, turnover, all these things, ever since the implementation of all this surveillance technology, the electronic log, as the turnover goes up and as these people get less and less healthy, you're less and less likely as an unhealthy person, when you don't look when you don't look good, when you aesthetically don't look good. I don't want to body shame here, but when you're aesthetically not looking your best.
No, man,
Yeah.
vibes are vibes, and vibes are real.
Yeah, when you don't look your best, when you look disheveled and like you look like, sorry to say, a fat piece of shit, or you're not your best and you're not doing your best, like that's how the world looks at you. But also, you're less likely to advocate for yourself. You're not going to stand up for yourself. So when these jobs want to roll on you, or when the government wants to roll on us, they'll say they know for a fact. And I said it in one of my TikToks, like you said, they know the tech industry, they know the government, they know truckers aren't going to do shit. They know they're not going to shut down the trucks. They know they'll just quit. They'll just quit, and we'll just keep importing drivers from other countries, like we talk about. We'll just keep dropping wages. We'll keep racing to the bottom. We know that drivers take no pride in their job anymore because they don't even take pride in themselves. So we could roll on this safety technology, keep lining our pockets, keep making the deals with the tech companies, and just keep making ourselves rich as other people disintegrate from it.
Yeah, there's something to be said here. You mentioned aesthetic and looking good, and then all of these other issues in the trucking business, and I couldn't help but think, um, Chris Christopherson in the movie Convoy, he was looking pretty tight. Like, that guy had some natural drip going on, and hey, there's something to that. I On the energy part again, I've gone through lots of seasonal weight gain ups and downs. I work out and ride my bike more in the summertime, and I've done some of the crazy stuff. I did the master cleanse once when I was, I want to say, 27 or 28, and I didn't eat for 3 weeks. I literally only drank the like lemon juice thing from the master cleanse for 21 days.
Oh,
And
that's, yeah. I have a friend. He calls that the snake diet, or the
yeah,
snake juice diet. He just drinks water with sodium and potassium.
yeah, I lost 25 pounds in 3 weeks, and somewhere around like day 16, day 17, I went to this party, right? I went to like I'm into this kind of weird dance music. It's called psytrance, and not so much anymore. But anyway, back in the day, I used to go to these parties, and like I'd worked all day. I hadn't eaten anything in 16, 17 days. And then I just raged all night. And I couldn't believe it. I'm like,
Were you drinking booze?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, I was like having like watered down orange juices to make up for the fact I didn't bring my lemon drinks with me to this bar. So I'm drinking like OJ and seltzer. I wasn't cheating, I wasn't drinking, but like I was full of energy. Like, I just wanted to rage, I wanted to go. And every time I've been on that, like, near the end of a cycle where I've dropped a bunch of weight, back on my bike, back lifting weights, like, you're right, man. The energy just comes back to you. Your body just feels better. You feel better about yourself. I get along better with my wife. Like, you can, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, all right, I got it. I can go take on that day. We live in material reality, right? There's no escaping that. We're only here once. You get one life. God put you here, the universe, nothing, whatever you want to believe, but like, you're here. There's no escaping material reality. And we have to engage the world. And like you said, if your body's in shape, then it makes it easier for your mind to be in shape. The vibes you give off are better. Your relationships are better. Like everything is just better by being in shape. And it doesn't even have anything to do with vanity. It just everything in your material reality is better. And like you said, like you're only here once. Like, why not make it an extended stay and enjoy yourself while you're here? You know, I really appreciate your outlook on that.
No, man, it means a lot. Like, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better yourself. As far as we know right now, we know it's one shot. Personally, I'm a Christian man. I'd like to believe that, hopefully, I could be, with Jesus and the boys one day. But I can't, I have full faith in that. But as of right now, I know, like, all I got is right now. Like it's right
Yeah.
now, and so I'm gonna extend this reality for as long as I can, because I want to be able to, number one, I want to hang out with all my friends. Like if it's one thing I love doing, I love being with my friends and family and seeing them win and grow their businesses and thrive and helping them do that sort of thing. I want to have the energy to do that. And I want to see that for as long as I fucking can, because what's going on this planet, what we do here is pretty, outstanding when you think about it. I mean, every single day, people are doing amazing things. I want to keep watching that. Like I can imagine being somebody who was born in 1900 and living till say 2010, to go from seeing, the horse to the to the moon, to from radio to the iPhone. Imagine being able to see that. I want to try to see that much stuff. I'm trying to live, man. LIVIN.
Yes. And part of your living and relationships and stuff. So you're married. What would you say your wife's name was? Drea?
Drea, yeah, short for
Drea.
Alexandria.
Alexandria. Yeah. Hello, Alexandria. I hope you get to listen to this. Your husband's awesome. So you want to have a nice long life with Alexandria. I mean, maybe you don't get to see her as much while you're doing the OTR stuff, but at some point in the future, you might move on. You might do local trucking, be in shape, spend as much of your life together as possible. I understand you'll be having children soon, or you're working on it.
Yeah, definitely. Kids are on my radar. I definitely want a family like that, and that's
Yeah,
that's one of
and
yeah,
that's the most
that's
important
matters.
thing. And like, it, be healthy for your family. You know, I have two little girls, love them to death, Vivian and Georgia. You know, light of my life. And every time I go through my weird winter seasonal weight gain and vibe shift, I hate it. And then in the springtime, I'm like, oh man, I've got my kids. We're going to run around in the backyard. And you got to have energy for small children. Like when you and your wife have kids, it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do. But then as they're growing up, they want to play, they want to be physical, and you got to be in shape, you know?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest messages I pass along to, either guys I'm helping coach or stuff I say, even stuff I've said it in TikTok videos of, especially for OTR guys, like, because I know a lot of guys who are OTR who have families. Our friend Chris, Indie Trucker, he's got a family of his own, and he's OTR. A lot of these guys, when they go home, the job has become, so the job has broken so many people's backs. When guys get home, the day they get home, they sleep for 10, 12 hours, and then if they're home, say you're only home for 3, 4 days, say you've been out 2.5 weeks, you're only home 2, 3 days, how much of that are you sleeping? Like, how much of that are you enjoying? Like, when you go home, are you even enjoying it? A lot of guys joke, like, it's like as soon as they get home, it's like they're back on the road again. It's because they've slept it away. They're not able to appreciate that time because they don't have the fucking energy for it. And that's what leads to them wanting to quit. Like, they're like, dude, I get home, I don't have any fucking energy. And it's like, and I feel for them, I feel bad, but if there is a way out, if they love this job but also love their families, you can have both. You can, like, when you go home, you can take advantage of every minute. It just has to do with doing the work and doing the hard things when you are on the road, getting out of the truck, going for the 45-minute walk, you know, eating, instead of getting two pieces of pizza, just get one, drink the
Yeah.
water, you
What
know.
exercises do you do while you're out on the road? So what's a Mike Lombard typical workout look like um at whatever random place you're stopped?
Well, if you go on my profile, I've been told this by the my friends over at CDL Drivers Unlimited, that sometimes I post some kind of advanced type of workouts, and I should dial it back. So I try to, me personally, I definitely do like interval training, like hit workouts. They'll be short 20, 30-minute workouts. But what I try to tell guys to do, and what the best thing you can do is definitely doing like basic stretching is for sure. Like 10, 15 minutes of basic stretching is number one.
Oh,
Doing
it'll do
yeah,
wonders for your back too.
yeah, that you have to stretch. And especially if you're just like, if you're somebody who is morbidly obese, you want to make a change, the best thing you can do to see an immediate difference, an immediate scale change, an immediate energy change is if you implement a 45-minute walk per day and just like switch from regular to diet soda, switch out those calories. It's the best. Like the number one fucking workout for drivers would be to go for a 45-minute intentional walk during the day. Even if you're a flatbed, whatever you do a 45 minutes of intentional movement. But other workouts that I personally do, like I got weights with me. I got those Bowflex adjustable dumbbells. I do have the plate carrier, which is like for a weighted vest. I've got some TRX straps. And I'll go on the first form app, or I'll just think of something in my head, or I use the tarps on the flatbed, which weigh almost 100 pounds, and I'll pick those up and throw them down and squat with those and stuff like that. And I'll just think of something in my head, I'll work out for 20 minutes and I'll do 3 sets of XYZ, and I'll just kind of make it up as I go.
Yeah, there was this. So when I first started trucking, so I'm a kid, I'm in high school, and I worked for these guys in Hamilton. And they hauled a lot of steel. They had flatbeds, RGNs, B trains. They had all kinds of interesting equipment. And one of their main customers was this outfit that bought secondary steel that was like non automotive excess prime coils, and they would resell it to other uses. And they had this warehouse, and they shipped out a lot of material. And there was this one guy who I sort of learned how to tie down loads from. His name was Rod, and he's still trucking. He still works for them. And that guy was lean, man, because he would every day, Sunday to Friday, he worked 6 days a week. He would literally load anywhere from like 6 to 10 trailers, like flatbed loads of plate, coils, bar stock. So he was constantly throwing chains, doing up binders, tarping loads up and down off the trailer. Like, he wasn't ripped. He didn't do weight training, but like there wasn't an ounce of fat on the guy.
Oh
He
yeah, he
just,
must have been leaned out, like cut
yeah,
cut up. Yeah.
yeah, he was literally loading anywhere from 6 to 10, sometimes 12 loads a day, just constantly on them chains, on those tarps. And like that kept them going.
I mean, I've been preaching to drivers. I'm telling them it themselves, because the only way we can make a change in this industry is if there is a drastic change. I tell guys all the time, get the fuck out of swinging doors. Like so many flatbed companies are looking like they need guys like, and the flatbed companies have been the better companies to work for. Even the mega carriers, like guys like Maverick and Melton, the ones who have their own schools, even though they have their own schools. I've met several success stories from Maverick, Melton, TMC. I bump into TMC drivers at the Port of Baltimore all the time. I haven't met a TMC driver who fucking hated it. I've met a TMC driver who, I worked there for 5 years, bought my own truck, did it for a little while, didn't like it, went back to TMC. So like even the larger flatbed companies, guys are like it. I tell like dry van and reefer. Yeah, it's becoming slave labor now. They're keeping you at these fucking docks, which I sell. If you're at these docks, just go for a walk. It'll help you out. But they're keeping you at these docks. They don't give a shit about you. You got 2 a.m. appointment times. You got to run, you're be ridden to this electronic log. Imagine if 10,000 drivers quit dry van tomorrow and started working for flatbed companies, you'd see a huge shift. But I mean, I just say it for the physical aspect alone, because I've clocked on my Apple Watch chaining down, especially the first time I started doing tractors, because I'd never done tractors before. If you're out here for a while, it takes you an hour to do something. You're torching 800 calories if you're a guy, around 5'11", 200 pounds. You're going to torch that many calories. It depends on your height and weight. You're going to get the work in. And that's what you need, if you want to drop the weight and, look your best.
Yeah, I see. So one of the mills I haul logs to, TMC trucks are regular in there hauling, sawn timber out. And yeah, those guys always, I mean, TMC is pretty well known. They got sharp looking trucks. They all kind of look the same. They're still a big company, but they're having to tarp, loads of lumber that are like 6 feet off the deck. They're getting their exercise in. They all seem like fairly happy campers. Yeah, doors. I think people sometimes think like I'm ragging on those that work in freight world. And I'm not. I don't want anybody to mistake it for like I'm ever ragging on people for their selection of job, or they're somehow lesser than us. But like you said, you get abused in the freight and reefer world so much of your time, your scheduling. It's just a bizarre thing, and like I wonder if like you internalize that abuse to become like a self-worth thing, and it attacks your self-esteem, which in turn like demotivates you from the fitness part, right? Like that connection between mind and body, when you just get abused constantly, I have to wonder if that's a factor in guys' unwillingness to look after themselves when they're on the road.
Oh, it's part of it. I've brought that up before too. Like when you have to sit in those stagnant positions and like this when you're sitting in limbo, it's definitely why guys, pick up smoking or keep smoking cigarettes, something as a time passer. Like having to sit or having to wait on a load, having to sit over the course of a weekend, because when you're at a place like I've been stuck at the Loves in Richmond, Indiana over the weekend. And, you can't PC, because I was driving for Pam and they don't let you use PC. And it's like, you don't make enough like, and you can't fucking Uber anywhere because you're in Richmond, Indiana. Where the fuck are you going to go? So it's
Yeah.
like, there's nowhere to go. So you're just sitting. And I mean, me, I've built the cognitive discipline to no, I'm going to move my body. I'm going to go. I'm just going to walk until I get tired. Like instead of scrolling on my phone, I'm going to walk. But that definitely has a negative impact on guys without a doubt. That sort of abuse like puts it down because they don't think of it, because they're just waiting on hearing what's next. It definitely there's negative implications to that type of abuse to guys because they feel useless. They feel like they're worthless, like they're being treated as a number. Like I remember the first time I got stuck, with a closed shipper when I was with Pam. They wanted me to deliver someplace on a Saturday. It said I had to be there at 8 a.m. The place wasn't even open on Saturdays. And it's like, and you can't get a hold of anybody at Pam. I was on hold for 2 hours trying to get a hold of somebody,
Damn.
because they run like basically a nobody crew for dispatch. So it makes you so just that like when you're not being heard, when you can't get a hold of somebody at one of these companies, and especially when you're a newer driver, because this is happening at the mega carriers, and you can't get a hold of anybody, it makes you feel worthless. And if you feel worthless, then you're gonna do worthless shit, which is
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. I remember being at a few DCs in the distant past when I did occasionally yank a van trailer or reefer trailer, and you're stuck at some joint and the only food is the seed oil and high fructose corn syrup infused junk they have in vending machines, and you're just so bent out of shape from getting stuck there. And that actually makes you tired too. Waiting makes you more tired than actually driving does. And I wish these nerds at the FMCSA and managers and the people that are trying to regulate us like took that into account. And like driving, yes, it's tiring after a number of hours. I'm not advocating for anybody to pull hero moves all the time, but like they really need to do something about detention and waiting time, and either pay us for it or mandate something to get trucks moving, because it's such a head fuck on people and just puts them in a bad mood, makes them drive more recklessly, makes them tired. I wish somebody would do a study that looked. I mean, people have done studies about detention and waiting time and shown that actually causes more accidents. But like, I'd love to see if there was like a more holistic one, like the waiting time, retention, abusive drivers, how that affects their health, how that affects their driving habits, the safety, the accidents, insurance numbers, and just zoom out a little bit more, and just get someone to like just smack the DCs, man. Like get these trucks moving. I actually want to. One of the things I want to do at this show is I want to get someone from the world of managing and running distribution centers and reefer warehouses, and just talk to them and be like, why is it that your industry constantly screws mine? Tell me what the problems are. And I don't want to be like judgmental to them or be a dink on the show here, but like just get their side of the perspective of like why they can't seem to ever do anything properly for our brothers in van and reefer world, you know?
I'm trying to find that out too, because the people I know who work on the other side of the loading dock, they're from their side of things. There's not that many bad stories. Like I have a friend of mine who works at Unilever, and for the most part, in like his place up in Arkansas, like they don't seem to have they don't have those issues. They're not keeping guys there at docks for long periods of time. I know, like, I don't know anybody who works at a Walmart DC. Like, I used to work, so I used to work for a wholesaler before I started driving, and we had trucks come all the time to docks. And I mean, we would get replenished every Tuesday and Friday by this truck. And I mean, I had that dude out of there. It was basically his 30-minute break. It was a regional job, it was a local job actually. And it's like he would come in, heat up his lunch in the microwave, and then by the time he was done eating, we had the truck empty. It was 30 minutes and he was out of here. And then on that end, I know people who worked at the main distribution center up in New Hampshire in Londonderry, and that place like ran like clockwork. He said, I've been told that if trucks were at docks, because that was a big place, it's a 1,000,000 square foot facility. I've been told that if a truck is at a dock, like they got them timed. Like if somebody's sitting at a dock, like guys are getting flamed. Like somebody's getting fired if like a truck's been at a dock for too long because they're trying to get that shit off. They need it
Wow.
counted for.
If only that was the industry standard.
Yeah, and I'm not sure why, and I'm not sure why these DCs wanted it. Like what I have to say is it's so inflated at, I think, at that level between, this is just my personal opinion, between like these large distribution centers, like not so much well, the Walmarts are included, but their contracts with the mega carriers, because that's who's doing all the fucking waiting, are the a lot of well, not even the mega carriers, it's owner operators who are waiting. So that's the thing. When you like, so because I've waited as an owner operator at these DCs, and if you're doing a live unload, odds are you're moving that load. It could be a Procter and Gamble load. Like just because if I go back to the broker's not going to go to either of them and be like, hey, why was my driver waiting so much? Like the communication aspects, like the supply chain of communication is
Yeah,
almost non-existent.
too many people in the middle.
Too many
And
people.
yeah, one of the things I noticed too, and I made a joke about this at Matt's, but I was only kind of semi joking. There's an awful lot of people in trucking and freight who want to do services for drivers or services for trucking companies, or they want to be brokers, or they want to hustle freight somehow. And there's a whole lot of people that don't actually want to drive. Like there's a lot of people who want to be involved in trucking and not actually do the work of trucking. They do not want to be drivers. And I mean, they hear these stories and you can sort of see why they're not getting paid enough. But like all these people in the middle they're not, I don't think the distributed blame that goes on with detention and trying to get compensation for those hours, it just becomes like a finger pointing exercise. Well, these guys don't pay. Well, their billing department is in India. And, well, this load got double brokered and these guys over here, they need this pay. Just too many people involved, And
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of, as you mentioned with Rust Belt Kid and a few other people, direct customer relationships with carriers, because it's better for the people getting stuff moved. Maybe they pay a premium, maybe they pay a little bit more, but like the service they're going to get will be better. It's better for the drivers. It's just better for everybody to have direct customer relationships. Not to say there's no place for brokers, but it just strikes me that there's like too many of them, and an awful lot of people that work at brokers have never been drivers. And like I see these horror stories on Twitter and I hear it on the radio of just like, brokers calling you 3-4 times wanting to know if you got loaded yet, even though they have some kind of way of tracking you.
Oh, it's fucking annoying.
Brokers demanding you put an app on your phone that they
Oh
can
yeah,
track you with.
macro point. Yep.
And like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't know how anybody puts up with that stuff.
Yeah,
But
I did. I was unfortunately cucked to that fucking bullshit quite often. Yeah, download MacroPoint, download Kite or something was another one. Yeah, those apps are so. Yeah, I've gotten phone calls. I've gotten phone calls at 2 a.m. Yeah, you'll get these phone calls. I think it's funny you say that. And then on the waiting aspect side, I just want to say the mega carriers, even if guys their drivers have to wait, those contracts aren't going anywhere because you can't find another carrier with 1,000 trailers that's going to move your stuff. But what I like what you had said about yeah, a lot of people who want to help the industry. I noticed that at Matt's too. Yeah, there's all these people who want to. There's these people who want to simplify the supply chain. Yeah, they always want to help. They always want to. They always want to help. It's and a lot of the reason is because when people look on YouTube or when they look, they know that one truck's $250,000 when you look at it. Like when you look at the spreadsheet, whether it's moving dry van, like on average, if you have a semi truck and if it's moving just dry freight, it could gross $250,000. So when they see trucks make 200, one truck can make $250,000 gross. That's what they see, and so they're like, oh my god, these trucks make so much money. There must be a way I can get involved and like somewhere get a nickel and dime here, and I can probably make the industry better with whatever it is I'm trying to offer. When really you don't, because it used to run smoother before any of these people were trying to help. Like
in many ways, that's true. Yeah. It's like a, it's well-meaning parasitism that it actually makes things more complicated. But anyway, moving along. So you are trying to help drivers with their fitness. You're trying to make their lives longer, better, give off better vibes, have that drip, get the thirst. All of these things are good. You had a young lady on your show recently who's new, and then we had an offline discussion. So I floated this idea to you, and I want to get it on the show so that maybe other people hear it and do the same thing. And I'm sure these like informal assistance happens already with some new people, like especially at smaller carriers. But I want to do this thing where, we have a bunch of guys who've been around the business for a while now. So like, how long have you actually been on the road?
3 years.
3 years. So that's pretty good. I'm on year 26. Chris has been doing it for a while.
I just want to say if it does count, I did have military driver's licenses. I did have driver's licenses for MRAP, MAP-V, and I did get to drive a large truck in Afghanistan. So I got to do a little bit. So I mean, I wonder, I don't know if it counts or not. I will say, yeah, I definitely did some trucking on a lot of so I did some convoys, especially I did a lot in training. So I did that, but in the freight world, yeah, 3 years in this line of service.
That's plenty. Most people wash out within 1 year. So like the fact you've got 3 years in, you're already way up the hierarchy. But anyway, my idea was and is that we build like an informal network of like older seasoned drivers to help people like your guest. Was it Casey Litz, Long Haul Litz?
Yep. Yeah. Casey Litz. New flat better, high energy. Yeah.
Yeah. She sounded amazing. And there's all kinds of, because we have churn and retention problems, there's always new people coming. And I think it behooves us older guys to at least try and help these folks, so they have a better time. Maybe they stick around. If we can just like every little thing we can do to like help make other people's lives better. And trucking's pretty intimidating for a certain type of person that's never done it before. There's the being away from home, the stress of like all these dispatchers and brokers and people calling you, and everyone's wondering what's going on. And then you have the ELD, and then you have the scales, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so I want to start something where like a bunch of us, I don't know, I don't think we would make an app or anything stupid like that, but like advertise ourselves as being like, here's the wise old graybeards that will talk you off the edge when you're having a bad day, or you need to like air something out, ask a question you think will be like make you look stupid if you ask your own dispatcher, or maybe your dispatcher is stupid and can't actually help you. Like, be there to like just assist newer drivers, rookie drivers, with whatever bits of wisdom we can possibly give them, and just do it. Like, and not just for free. We just like need a list of like 12 guys. Boom. Here's all our phone numbers. You have trouble, give one of us a call. We'll help you out. Like, is there something like this that exists like in all your travels around online, like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, like all the stuff you do? Have you ever come across anyone doing that? Like, other
Well,
than watch my YouTube video to help you with this one particular problem?
yeah, to help you with this one particular, I haven't, and I like where you're going with this, because the last thing I want is somebody like Casey to quit, because she is motivated. She has a passion for wanting to do this because it's in her blood. She's kind of like a hippie. She's a musician who's gone on tour. She's into this lifestyle. She wants to do it. And the last thing would be, because she gets either flustered because of some dumb law or some rule, and then she's just like, fuck this. I could probably figure something else out. The last thing I want is people who want to be here to leave. Like, so we don't want that. The only thing, I haven't seen it. The only things I've seen are two things: our Lost Freight Discord, which we have going on with people in the logistics industry that we're trying to build like our own little network. And then other than that, I mean, this is essentially what TikTok has become. Like I said, I don't recommend you get on the app. I know we all know it is Chinese malware, and it's ripping society apart. But I'll give credit where credit's due. Is there is some, as much as there is negative energy from guys. Normally, when people go on there and pose a question, especially if it has to do with you know is something really random. Actually, I think that girl Casey had posted a video where she was asking about certain. She came across a pop-up inspection that pulled you into a rest stop in Minnesota, I believe, and New York does these as well. Like, where all of a sudden you'll see like enter now, like for inspection, and it's where they pop up the signs, and they do it in a rest area, and they're
Yeah.
essentially just like checking your tires and like doing a drive-by, and they might pull somebody through. And she just went on there and had asked, like, hey, is this normal? Like, should I expect this to happen in other states? And a lot of other people like chimed in, like, oh yeah, this will happen in New York, this happens in Pennsylvania. So like, people will pose questions on there, and the algorithm will kind of kick it in, or from a little bit of your followers, or just that network, it goes along that way. But it's not like, it's like you said, though, it's nothing really organized. So there's nothing really organized I've seen out there of what
Right.
you're
And I
talking
mean,
about.
when you're in the moment, like you're going down the road, some problem comes up, maybe it's interpersonal with your dispatch or with a customer, maybe a family friend at home, maybe it's technical about the truck, the trailer, a location. Maybe they went on trucker path and they discovered one of these rest area inspections is happening and they need someone to assist with navigation, as it were. I just like, there's all kinds of stuff that could happen, and I think there's room to have some kind of assistance, like on the fly. That's not
Well,
like if you're having a problem, I don't know how. Uh, I don't know that like scrolling through TikTok or like typing something in TikTok search bar is going to help you immediately resolve it properly. And there's like a disconnect. It's being mediated by this video technology. Like having someone you can call, having that connection. You
well,
know,
shit. I
someone calls Mike, someone calls Chris, someone calls me, someone calls you know whoever it, and like, hey, I'm having this issue, and we just offer our advice the best we can. And if it's not something we can help, we could recommend and point them in the right direction to find the help. It's like a customer service line, except it's for rookies, and it's just a bunch of us dudes at the other end. And it doesn't
well,
cost you anything, and it's not going to be
yeah.
some guy in India, and you're not going to be on hold. You know,
Well,
and,
shit. You're
and
you're
and
going
and
to
like if one of us is busy, if like someone calls me, I'll be like, oh hey, I'm busy with my kids and stuff now. I'll be like, hey, go to Mike, and then Mike helps. Or if Mike can't, go to Chris. Like, and there'll be like there'll be somebody there to help these folks out.
you
And
bring
like
it up.
we should gift it. Like I gift my podcast. I don't take ads. I don't have sponsors. I don't charge people money. Like it behooves us. That's part of the whole deal with like transmitting information, transmitting wisdom, skills. You know, it's like tribal. This is like the elders. You'd sit around the fire and tell stories, and like this is wisdom, and like this is how like you navigate life. Like we should do that for our fellow drivers in some capacity.
Well, you say, and when you word it like that and you bring it up, and it just comes to my mind because you did a live episode with them at Matt's, but this is actually kind of along the lines of what CDL Drivers Unlimited wants to be, is that resource for free too, because they do have a membership you can pay for, because they're definitely wanting to, the Schmitz are trying to, definitely wanting to lobby in DC and such, but for free they're offering resources like that. And I think that that's what they're trying to grow to be. As far as I know, from what I know from joining, Drivers Unlimited, I know that they're definitely on board with everything you're talking about and doing it for free.
Right. Yeah.
So,
No.
but
We
other
should
than
talk about
them,
that with them.
yeah, that I think they'd be a good resource to kind of get what you're talking about, kind of bring that into fruition, because it would be good. We do need that. It used to be, from what I have been told by any older driver, is like that was what it was like anywhere in the industry, whether you were at a shipper receiver, whether you were at a truck stop, like especially if you were at a truck stop. I mean, guys said, I mean, I was just talking to our friend Taylor, Taylor Built from Twitter. He was telling me, because I had such a good time hanging out in the parking lot with him. We were drinking beers and Jack Daniels, and his band was playing in the trailer. And he's like, man, this was it. You got stuck over a weekend. He's like, you'd be at, this truck stop here, whatever, and, there'd be 100 guys out grilling out, playing music, drinking, like this is talking. And like, that's where you got your info. He goes, that's where you learned shit. It's like, at the truck stop when guys used to talk, he goes, now it's a fucking ghost town.
Yeah. I mean, and a problem that I like to complain about all the time is the CDL mills, and they kind of the vastly they make people, they put people on the road who are vastly unprepared for it, and these sort of informal wisdom sharing venues, formats, and systems having also been eaten away by our atomization, and by everybody being stuck into their phones and sort of out for themselves. So yeah, if whatever we can do to push back against that. All right, sir. I don't know about you, but I'm getting pretty whipped.
Oh yeah.
Your energy just sucked it out of me, and I got to get up at like 3:30 in the morning and go logging.
Oh yeah. I could tell it's still dark where you're at. Yeah. The sun's just going down in Laredo. So I'm at a different latitude line. But hey, man, no, I think we covered a lot of ground. If I know we always it's easy to get sidetracked with me, because I mean, well, I could tell you first and foremost, I could keep talking for as long as you want. We could even do a part two,
That
or
fella could
whatever you
talk
want
the
to do.
cat off the fish truck, as they say in Newfoundland.
But we got everything out there. I just want to, before we do sign off, is thank you again for letting me come on here, because what's crazy is, I do spend a lot of time in solitude. We drive a lot during the day, and everything that I just dished out to you, especially in regards to like health and like everything I just spit off, I don't have any notes in front of me. That comes off the cuff. And this passion comes to me when I drive, and sometimes I don't have that outlet. So I appreciate you letting me come on here and say this stuff, because it really is important. And I want to drive change. Like I made an episode on my show called, Fix Bayonets a while ago. And that's when I started really getting fired up, because that's when I realized that so much of what's the information out there in regards to trucking is there's a lot of YouTube frauds. There's a lot of phonies. There's a lot of misinformation about trucking. There's a lot of people who got into the shit. When I got into trucking, I got in, and what motivated me to start trucking wasn't the money. Obviously I knew it was a way to make money. I knew it's like I wasn't going into something that was going to pay me, what I was making at Burger King in high school. But the reason why I got into trucking wasn't because I wanted to be some get rich quick. Oh, this is your new hustle. I got in for honor, for legacy. Like I did it because I truly feel as though I'm honoring my grandfather, honoring my family, doing something like something like trying to build something for my family. Like I'm trying to, it sounds almost medieval, but I'm trying to like build a coat of arms again around my family. I want my kids to have something to, I want my kid, because, I was told growing up, oh, you could be whatever you want. You could be whatever you want. I don't want my kids to look at me one day and say, well, what are you, dad? Like, are you that? Are you doing whatever you want? Like, I'm trying to build that. And that's why I got into trucking. So I get real passionate about this stuff. And so I can't appreciate you enough for having me on here for your listeners to hear what I'm talking about, because it is important, guys. This job is great. It could be great, but unfortunately we're going to have to be the ones to make it better. And, part of what gets us there is, getting the fuck after it, being fit, being fit, jack motherfuckers, and, having this kind of energy, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, no.
I just want to thank you for that.
Amen to that, and no problem, man. No problem at all. So, download. Tell everybody where they can find you if they want to hit you up for nutrition information, for workouts, or just to see your manic TikTok videos. How does everyone find you?
Everyone can find me at Lombard Trucking. Lombard is Lombard. Kind of like the trophy Lombardi, just without the I. Fun fact: my family did remove the O from their I used to be Lombardo, but they removed it to do better business. But yes, I'm at Lombard Trucking everywhere: Instagram, TikTok. You can find my YouTube on there. On podcasting world, it's just the Lombard Trucking Show. And if you're interested in having, joining the team and having me, help you out with, making some better healthy choices and getting your body moving, feel free to download the First Form app, and you can search my name up to be your advisor, Michael Lombard, and be willing to help you out. Drop me a message anytime. Like, even if you don't want to use the app, if you just got questions or you want some help, drop me a message anywhere. I'm available to all. I don't charge for any of that stuff. I'm here for everybody, man.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. And I'll dig up all those links and put them in the notes under the show. Mike Lombard, man, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it again.
All right, way of the road, Bubs.